Chapter 1: The silence before the swarm. The Kelari fleet command chamber pulsed with cold light, its walls alive with shifting tactical glyphs. Admiral Sarex leaned forward, mandibles clicking in irritation as the final fragments of the third patrol's logs replayed across the central holosphere. 47 cutters erased without debris, without warning, without even a trace of weapons fire. Only Voreth's broken transmission remained, a survivor's voice trembling with words the Kelari had never heard from their own kind: fear. "Run it again," Sarex ordered. His voice carried the weight of empire, but beneath it lay a tremor of disbelief. The logs replayed, silence, then sudden absence. No energy spikes, no hull fractures, no escape pods, just the patrol vanishing into nothingness. Across the chamber, strategist Kalith spoke with measured calm. "The humans have weaponized absence. They strike from void states beyond our sensors. Their cutter left a trail minimal but traceable, and Voreth's beacon still flickers. Two leads, both must be pursued." Sarex's claws tightened against the command rail. "We will pursue both, deploy sector-wide sweeps. Every listening post, every scout wing. If these humans believe they can erase fleets, then we will erase them." Far beyond Kelari space, the Ardent drifted in stealth mode, its hull absorbing starlight into a matte shadow. Jack sat in the cockpit, helmet off, eyes fixed on the tactical overlay. The strike had been perfect, too perfect. No wreckage meant no evidence, but it also meant no deterrent. The Kelari would not see defeat, they would see insult. "Status?" Jax asked, voice clipped. Lieutenant Mara's reply came sharp and precise. "FTL trail scrubbed, our ghost signature holds, but Voreth's beacon complicates matters. If they triangulate his position, they'll backtrack to us." Jax exhaled slowly, forcing calm into his tone. "Then we move before they can. Silence is our weapon, but silence is fragile. Prep the next strike package. We'll show them that absence isn't a fluke, it's doctrine." Voreth's cutter spun slowly in the void, its hull scarred, its systems bleeding power. He clung to consciousness, staring at the human transmission that looped endlessly across his failing console. "We will erase your ability to field fleets." He had never known fear. Kelari warriors were bred for dominance, their fleets unmatched. Yet here he was, alone, drifting, his empire's certainty shattered. He tapped a weak command into the console, sending his beacon pulse again. Each flicker was a plea: "Find me, find what happened, avenge us." But beneath the plea was something Voreth could not admit even to himself, an echo of awe. The humans had struck with precision beyond comprehension. They had turned the void itself into a blade. Kelari High Command moved with ruthless efficiency. Within hours, scout wings fanned across the sector, their sensors tuned to anomalies, their orders absolute: locate Voreth, trace the human trail, annihilate the source. Sarek stood before the fleet projection, watching icons multiply across the map. They think themselves unseen. They think silence protects them. We will drown them in noise. Every frequency, every spectrum, every particle, they cannot hide. Kalith's response was colder. "And if they can, if silence is not a tactic but a truth," Sarex's mandibles flared, "then we will learn to scream louder than silence itself." On the Ardent, Jax reviewed the strike logs. Each maneuver had been flawless, each kill invisible. Yet perfection carried its own danger. The Kelari would adapt, they always did. He keyed the comm. "Mara, reroute power to stealth drives. We'll shadow their search wings. Let them hunt ghosts while we carve their hunters apart." Mara's tone was steady, but her eyes betrayed the tension. "We're outnumbered 100-1. Every wing we strike will bring 10 more." Jax's reply was calm, almost detached. "Then we strike 10 more. Numbers mean nothing if they can't see us." Voreth's beacon pulsed again, weaker this time. Across the void, Kelari scouts caught the signal, triangulating its position. The hunt narrowed. On the human tactical overlay, Mara's voice cut sharp. "They've locked onto Voreth. Their wings converge. If they recover him, they'll know we exist." Jax's jaw tightened. "Then Voreth cannot be recovered." Silence filled the cockpit. Mara's eyes flicked to Jax, searching for hesitation. There was none. The Kelari swarm closed in on Voreth's cutter, wings fanning like blades. Voreth's failing eyes lit with hope as the icons appeared on his console. Rescue, vengeance. His empire had not abandoned him. But in the shadow beyond, the Ardent slid into position, unseen, unheard. Jax's hands hovered over the controls, his voice steady. "Target lock, silent strike, no survivors." Mara's fingers danced across the console, weapons primed. "On your mark." Jax's eyes narrowed, the weight of inevitability pressing against him. "Mark." The void erupted, not with fire, not with light, but with absence. Kelari wings vanished, erased mid-flight, their signals snuffed before alarms could sound. Voreth's console flickered once, twice, then went dark. His beacon died with him. In the command chamber, Sarex watched as the scout wing icons blinked out. His mandibles froze, his claws digging into the rail. Gone, without trace. Again, Kalith's voice was a whisper, but it carried across the chamber like a blade. "The humans are not hunters, they are executioners." Jax leaned back in the cockpit, eyes cold, voice level. Voreth's beacon is gone, their lead is severed, but they'll know, they'll feel the silence, and they'll come harder. Mara's reply was quiet, almost reverent. Then we'll show them silence has no end. The Ardent drifted deeper into the void, unseen, unheard, carrying with it the weight of a war that had only just begun. Word count tilde 960, the alarms on the Wrath of Calith cut out before they could reach full pitch, Sarex's claw slamming the override hard enough to crack the polycarbonate panel. Sensor report now. The Kalari at the comms station's mandibles clicked so fast they blurred. No debris commander, no heat bloom, no M-spike, no transponder fragment. The scout wing signatures just stopped. All 12 craft gone in 0.2 seconds. Sarex's carapace prickled, the same cold prickle he'd felt 3 cycles prior, when a single human stealth fighter had erased a Kalari supply frigate in the jellied rift. No warning, no survivors. He leaned over the sensor chief's station, claws digging into the edge of the console. Pull Voreth's last transmission, the one right before his beacon died. The screen flickered, spitting static for 3 seconds before a distorted, staticky voice came through. Unknown gravitic signature, 0.3 clicks off our port bow, no visual, no sensor lock, I can't. Then silence, followed by a tiny, almost imperceptible spike on the gravitic sensor readout, so small the system had flagged it as sensor noise and discarded it. Gravitic cloaking, Calith said, stepping up beside Sarex, her voice low, no inflection, no room for panic. Their ships bend spacetime to match background radiation. Our sensors can't pick them up unless they fire weapons or drop cloak. Sarex's mandibles ground together. They took out the scout wing, killed Voreth, and we still can't pick their position. They're executioners, not hunters, Calith repeated, the words sharp as a blade. They don't want to fight, they want us dead, and they want us to not see it coming. Sarex slammed his fist on the console. Scramble the 7th swarm wing. All 48 craft, no navigation lights, no comms except burst transmission every 12 seconds, sweep a 2,000 click radius. Kill any contact, no ID required. If that thing is out there, we burn it out of the void. Calith shook her head. If you order full scramble, they'll break formation. The humans will pick them off one by one, same as they did the scout wing. Order the wing to hold formation, sweep in a tight spread. Any craft that picks up a gravitic ping fires a spread of dumb missiles, no guidance, just saturation. If the humans are cloaked, they can't dodge a wall of ordnance they can't see coming. Sarex stared at her for 2 seconds, then nodded. Do it. And get me a lock on the human evacuation convoy's last known position. If the humans are screening that thing, they'll be close. On the Ardent, Jax's fingers tapped the side of his console, his eyes fixed on the Kalari comms burst he'd intercepted 12 seconds prior. They scrambled the 7th swarm, 48 craft holding formation, ordered to fire dumb missile spreads on any gravitic ping. Mara didn't look up from the power management console, her fingers flying across the keys. Cloak is at 92% power. We've got 47 minutes of full cloak before we have to drop to half power for a 2-hour recharge. If we stay cloaked the whole time, we can pick off 12, maybe 15 of those fighters before they get a missile lock on us. Negative. Jax pulled up the convoy's trajectory on his screen. The 17 civilian transports, flanked by 6 human escort frigates, were 1180 clicks aft, moving at 0.8 C. Their projected intercept with the main Kalari swarm 17 minutes out. If we engage the swarm, they'll scatter. The escorts can't track 48 separate fighter signatures. Half the convoy gets taken out before they reach the base. Mara's fingers stilled for half a second. So what's the play? Lure them away. Jax tapped a set of coordinates 400 clicks off the convoy's port side, deep into a dense asteroid field the Kalari sensors couldn't penetrate. I'm going to trigger a 1-second gravitic burst, just enough to ping their sensors, make them think we're drifting towards the Kalari home system. They'll break formation to chase, leave the convoy clear. What about the asteroids? Mara asked. We can't outrun the swarm in there, not with the cloak at half power. We won't have to. Jax's mouth twitched, the closest he'd come to a smile in 72 hours. The Kalari don't know the fields laced with dormant anti-ship mines the colonial militia laid last cycle. If the swarm chases us in there, half of them will get blown to scrap before they even get a sensor lock. Mara stared at him for a second, then nodded, priming the gravitic burst emitter. You sure this works? Only one way to find out. Jax's hands tightened on the control sticks, his eyes fixed on the Kalari swarm's icons, still holding formation, 2200 clicks out, moving straight for the convoy's projected path. On my mark. A tiny sensor pinged from a Kalari fighter passed 52 clicks off the Ardent's port side, close enough to make the proximity alarm flash amber for half a second before Mara silenced it. Jax didn't flinch. Mark, Mara keyed the emitter. The Ardent's cloak flickered, a tiny burst of distorted gravity blasting out into the void, then the cloak snapped back into place, perfect, invisible, silent. On the Wrath of Caliph, the sensor chief yelled, "Contact, Gravit signature, 400 clicks off our port bow, drifting towards the core systems." Sarex roared, "All craft, alter course 20 degrees port, full burn, kill that thing before it escapes." Caliph watched the swarm's icons shift on the display, all 48 fighters breaking formation, engines flaring as they turned away from the convoy's path, chasing the fake ping into the asteroid field. She turned to Sarex, a faint, sharp smile on her carapace. "Finally." "They gave us a target." Jax watched the swarm's icons turn on his console, heading straight for the asteroid field away from the convoy. Mara let out a quiet, shaky breath. "Got M," she said. Jax didn't answer, his eyes fixed on the timer counting down to the swarm's arrival at the asteroid minefield. "Not yet. We've got 38 minutes before they catch that ping. Then we fade and we do it again." The Arden's hull hummed, silent, invisible, the gravitic cloak holding perfect as the Kalari swarm burned towards the fake signal, straight into the trap. Somewhere aft, 17,000 civilians slept in the convoy's transports, unaware that the only thing standing between them and the Kalari guns was a single stealth fighter, and a lie. Word count, 987. The Arden's cockpit hummed with the low thrum of the gravitic cloak's power core, the only sound besides Jax's steady breathing and the soft clack of Mara's datapad as she cross-referenced the Kalari swarm's trajectory against the asteroid field's debris density map. 32 minutes remained on the countdown timer before the first of the 48 fighters caught the fake gravitic ping Mara had seeded in the field's core. "Trajectory holds," Mara murmured, her voice tight, the residual shake from the emitter burst gone. "They're not deviating. Swarm's average burn is 0.8 C, 12% faster than the Wrath of Caliph's flank speed. They'll be 20 minutes ahead of their capital ship support by the time they hit the ping." Jax didn't look up from his HUD, his fingers tapping a slow, deliberate rhythm on the flight stick as he ran cloak diagnostic checks for the third time in 10 minutes. Good. More time to fade before Sarex realizes he's chasing ghosts. A sharp chime cut through the cockpit, the encrypted convoy comms flashing red. Mara's head snapped up, her fingers flying to the receiver. "Colonel Voss, Transport 7, port thruster plasma leak, 17% output drop. They're venting, but the signature's faint, might not pick up on passive sensors, but if the Wrath does an active sweep of the convoy vector before the swarm's fully committed, we're lit up." Jax's hand froze on the flight stick. The convoy was hugging the edge of the asteroid field's sensor shadow, the only thing keeping the 17,000 civilians aboard its transports off the Kalari's targeting lists. If Sarex ordered an active sweep now, the Wrath's sensors would punch through the shadow before the swarm was far enough gone to draw his full attention. "Abort the lure?" Mara asked, her voice low, already knowing the answer. "No," Jax's jaw tightened. "If we kill the ping now, the swarm turns back in 90 seconds. They glass the convoy before we can get a single shot off. Adjust the fake ping's trajectory 15 degrees starboard, put it right on the Wrath's forward sensor array, draw his eyes away from the convoy." Mara's fingers hovered over the emitter controls. "That'll create a gravitic ripple big enough for his sensor chief to pick up from 400 clicks out. He'll send half that swarm back to investigate. We'll have 24 fighters on our doorstep in 18 minutes, plus whatever escort he scraps together from the Wrath's own complement. Better 24 than 48 hitting the convoy blind." Jax's tone was flat, no room for argument. "Key it." Mara hesitated for half a second, then slammed the emitter control. The Arden's cloak flickered, a second, larger gravitic burst blasting out, far louder than the first, before snapping back into perfect invisibility. On the Wrath of Caliph, the sensor chief's shriek was loud enough to rattle the command deck's viewport panels. "Second contact, bigger gravitic signature, bearing 210, directly off the human convoy's vector." "It's moving, sir, heading straight for our forward array." Sarex's carapace flushed dark with irritation, his claws scraping the edge of the command console. "Foolish human tricks. Half the swarm break formation, intercept that ping, kill whatever's sending it. The rest keep chasing the first signal into the asteroid field. I want that convoy gone before they reach the core." Jax watched the swarm's icons split on his HUD, 24 turning hard back towards the convoy's last known position, the other 24 burning full speed towards the asteroid field. The countdown timer reset to 18 minutes. "Returning swarm's lead fighter is 200 clicks out," Mara said, her voice tight. "They'll pass within 100 clicks of our position. If they do a passive sweep as they go, they'll pick up the residual heat from the second emitter burst." Jax's eyes narrowed. He toggled the Ardent's weapons panel, pulling up the micromissile loadout. "Program a proximity fuse, 100-click detonation radius, time to go off 5 seconds before the lead fighter passes our position. Make it look like a stray ice chunk from the asteroid field got caught in their thruster wash." Mara's fingers flew across the console, inputting the targeting data in 12 seconds flat. Jax uncloaked for 0.2 seconds, just long enough for the missile's guidance system to lock onto the returning swarm's lead fighter, then fired, recloaking before the heat bloom could register on any passive sensors. The missile hit dead center of the lead fighter's port engine, blowing it apart in a silent flash of sparks and fragmented alloy. The remaining 23 fighters of the returning swarm flared their brakes hard, their sensor arrays sweeping the debris field around the explosion, searching for a threat that wasn't there. "They're holding position," Mara reported, a faint, sharp edge to her voice. "They think it's debris." "Won't resume pursuit for at least 3 minutes. Jax watched the countdown timer tick down to 14 minutes. On his HUD, the 24 fighters chasing the first ping were 10 minutes out from the asteroid field's core, the Wrath of Caliph 30 minutes behind them, still chasing the second fake signal. The convoy's comms chimed again, Voss's gravelly voice coming through. "Thruster leaks contained. We're holding course. What's your status?" "We're fine," Jax said, his eyes never leaving the swarm's icons. "Tell your people to keep their heads down. We're not done yet." The first of the returning swarm's icons flared, engines lighting up as they resumed their burn towards the convoy. 14 minutes. 24 fighters, 17,000 civilians sleeping in transports that couldn't outrun a Kelari fighter for more than 90 seconds. Jax tightened his grip on the flight stick. "Let's see how long they keep chasing ghosts before they figure out we're the ones holding the gun." Chapter 4, Episode 12, ASF. The asteroid field was a graveyard of shattered rock and drifting metal, every shadow a potential ambush. Jax's HUD painted the swarm in cold blue icons, their formation tightening as they accelerated. 24 Kalari interceptors, sleek and predatory, moving with the precision of a hunting pack. They weren't fooled for long. The ghosts had bought minutes, not salvation. "Vector shift," Mara said, her voice clipped. "They're splitting into 2 wings, 12 on convoy intercept, 12 sweeping for us." Jax's jaw locked. "They're adapting, no more tricks, they want blood." The human fighters' only 4 cloaked ASF units were scattered across the debris field. Outnumbered 6-1, their only advantage was invisibility and discipline. Jax toggled the secure channel. "All units hold cloak, wait for my mark, we hit them when they commit." Static crackled, then Voss's voice cut in from the convoy. "We're blind out here, Jax. If they break through, we can't maneuver." "You've got 1 shot. 1 shot's all we need," Jax replied, though his knuckles whitened on the stick. He wasn't sure if he believed it, but belief wasn't required, execution was. The Kelari wing sweeping for cloaked fighters fanned out, their sensor beams slicing through the asteroid dust. Mara's breathing was steady, almost unnervingly calm. "They're probing, patterns predictable. If they sweep left again, I'll have a firing window." "Negative," Jax said. "Hold, we strike convoy interceptors first. Kill their teeth before they bite." The alien fighters surged forward, engines burning bright. Their arrogance was palpable. Kelari doctrine relied on overwhelming numbers, not subtlety. Believed humans were prey, not predators. That arrogance was the lever Jax intended to break them with. "Convoy intercept wing entering kill zone," Mara reported. "Range 8,000 meters. Jax's eyes narrowed. "All units mark targets. Fire on my command." The human fighters ghosted into position, invisible specters among the rocks. Jax selected the lead interceptor, its profile sharp against the void. He could almost feel the pilot's confidence radiating across the distance. The Kelari believed no human would dare engage head-on. 3 seconds, Mara whispered. 2, 1, fire. 4 ASF fighters decloaked in perfect unison, missiles streaking out like silent daggers. Kelari formation had no time to react. Explosions ripped through the lead wing, 3 interceptors vaporized instantly, a 4th spiraling into debris. The remaining 8 scattered, panic fracturing their cohesion. "Recloak," Jax barked. His fighter vanished back into shadow as return fire lanced through empty space. The Kelari fired blind, their beams carving useless arcs across the asteroid field. "Convoy wing disrupted," Mara confirmed. "They're regrouping but slower, civilians have breathing room." The second Kelari wing, the hunters, reacted with fury. Their sensors flared, triangulating the missile trails. "They've got a fix," Mara warned. "They'll sweep our vector in 30 seconds. Jax's mind raced. "Then we bleed them here. Mara, flank right, I'll draw their sweep." He throttled forward, cloak shimmering as he skimmed past jagged rock. The Kelari beams locked onto his trajectory, converging like knives. He uncloaked for a fraction of a second, loosing a burst of cannon fire into the nearest interceptor. The alien ship's hull ruptured, venting plasma. Jax recloaked before the swarm could retaliate. "Contact down," he said, voice flat. "They'll chase me." Mara cut their tail. The hunters surged after Jax, their formation tightening. Mara's fighter ghosted behind them, her missile lock silent and unseen. He fired 2 interceptors, shredded in twin blossoms of fire. The Kelari formation broke again, confusion spreading like cracks in glass. 6 down, Mara reported. 18 remain. Jax's HUD flickered with new alerts. The Wrath of Calith, the alien capital ship, was accelerating, closing the gap. 30 minutes had become 25. Its massive silhouette loomed on long-range sensors, a predator drawn by the scent of battle. Convoy won't survive a direct capital strike, Voss's voice growled. We need more time, Jax exhaled slowly. Then we take it from them. The Kilari regrouped, their arrogance tempered by losses, but numbers still favored them. 18 interceptors against 4 ASF fighters. The convoy was a fragile thread dangling between annihilation and escape. Jax opened the channel. Listen up, we're not here to win clean, we're here to make them bleed until they hesitate. Every second we buy is another life saved. No heroics, precision kills only. Mara's reply was ice cold. Understood. The other 2 ASF pilots checked in, voices steady despite the odds. They knew the math. They knew survival wasn't guaranteed. But none wavered. The Kilari interceptors advanced again, cautious now, their sensor beams sweeping in tighter arcs. Jax studied their movement, calculating angles. They're learning. Next strike won't catch them flat-footed. Then we change the rules, Mara said. Force them into crossfire. Jax's lips curled into a grim smile. Exactly. He transmitted coordinates, a kill box mapped across the asteroid field. The ASF fighters maneuvered silently, cloaked ghosts weaving into position. The convoy drifted behind them, unaware of the razor's edge being carved in their defense. The Kilari wing entered the kill box. Jax uncloaked, firing a missile straight into their center. The aliens reacted instantly, scattering outward. But scattering was exactly what Jax wanted. Mara and the others decloaked on the flanks, unleashing a storm of fire. Explosions rippled across the formation. 3 more interceptors destroyed, 2 crippled. Recloak, Jax ordered. The ASF fighters vanished again, leaving chaos in their wake. The Kilari pilots screamed across comms, their discipline unraveling. They weren't used to prey striking back with surgical precision. Their arrogance was cracking, and cracks spread fast under pressure. Jax checked the timer. 22 minutes until the Wrath of Calith arrived. 17,000 civilians still alive. 4 ASF fighters still holding the line. He tightened his grip on the stick, eyes locked on the swarm's icons. Round 2, he muttered. Let's see how much more arrogance we can burn out of them before the monster arrives. The kill box shuddered as alien hulls fractured, debris spraying like shrapnel across the vacuum. Jax's HUD flickered with damage readouts, 2 of his wingmen showing amber on their left nacelles, Mara's fighter reporting a depleted shield capacitor at 34%. The comms crackled with ragged breaths and the occasional curse, but the channel stayed clear enough for command. Jax, Mara, status. Came the voice of Lieutenant Renz, barely audible over the hiss of leaking coolant. 2 hits on Alpha 4, shield breach on Bravo 7, Jax replied, eyes never leaving the scrolling icons of the swarm. Mara, you're holding at 34% caps. Keep the burners low, we need you for the next pass. Mara's voice was flat, stripped of any flourish. Copy, I'll stay in the shadow of the big rock. If they try to flank, I'll pop a burst and blind their sensors. Jax nodded, though no one could see it. He keyed a quick burst to his own thrusters, nudging the fighter into a tighter orbit around the asteroid that had become their makeshift anchor. The rock's irregular silhouette masked his heat signature, a trick they'd learned after the first wave of Kilari plasma lances scorched the empty void. A new blip appeared on the tactical overlay, small, fast, moving orthogonal to the main swarm. It didn't match any known Kilari profile. Jax pulled up the classification algorithm. The return was too clean, too uniform. Unknown contact, bearing 47, range 12 clicks, he said. Mara, can you get a visual? A split second later, a slim silhouette resolved against the starfield. A single-seat interceptor, its hull matte black, edges blurred by an active camouflage field. The alien's emblem, a triple-spoked glyph, glowed faintly on its nose. That's a Wraith class, Mara whispered, more to herself than to the comm. They're holding back, probably a scout. Jax's mind raced. The Wraiths were the Kalari's answer to human stealth, rare, expensive, and deadly accurate. If one had slipped through the kill box, it meant the Armada was adapting faster than they'd anticipated. Keep it locked, he ordered. If it fires, we need to know where the shot's coming from before it hits. The Wraith held its position, sensors pinging intermittently. Jax felt the familiar itch at the base of his skull, the prelude to a lock-on. He eased his throttle, letting the fighter drift just enough to stay out of the interceptor's optimal engagement cone while staying within missile range. Alpha 4, you're clear to engage, he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. Fire a spread burst at 0.2 seconds delay. We want to confuse its targeting. Ackerman's voice came back, strained but focused, burst away. 3 rapid pulses of ionized plasma lanced from Alpha 4's nose, scattering like fireflies. The Wraith shimmered, its camouflage flickering as the bursts washed over it. For a heartbeat, the alien ship seemed to hesitate, then it broke hard to port, thrusters flaring as it tried to reacquire. Jax seized the moment. He rolled his fighter inverted, aligning his dorsal mounts with the Wraith's exposed ventral side. A quartet of micro-missiles launched, their trails thin violet lines against the dark. Two struck home, detonating in a cascade of blue-white plasma that ate through the Wraith's outer hull. The interceptor shuddered, its camouflage collapsing into a dull, charred shell. "Wraith down," Jax reported, allowing himself a fraction of a second of relief. "But expect more. They're learning to counter our bursts." Mara's voice cut in, edged with urgency. "Jax, the swarm's regrouping. They're tightening the formation. Looks like they're setting up a wall to funnel us toward the big rock." Jax glanced at the tactical readout. The Kelari were indeed contracting, their ships moving in echelon, creating a semi-permeable barrier that funneled any approaching threat toward the asteroid's mass. It was a classic anvil and hammer maneuver. The swarm would hammer them against the immobile rock, crushing any attempt to break free. He keyed his comm to the entire squadron. "Listen up, they're trying to pin us. We break the hammer by turning the anvil into a weapon." He transmitted a new set of coordinates, a vector that would send the squadron skimming the asteroid's surface at a shallow angle, using the rock's mass to slingshot them back into the swarm's flank. The maneuver would expose them to the asteroid's gravity well for a brief window, but the payoff was a high-speed, low-signature pass that could shatter the Kelari line before they could reset. "All fighters prepare for a gravity assist run. On my mark, cut thrust to 15%, hold attitude, let the rock pull you in. When we hit periapsis, fire full burn and punch through the flank. Mara, you'll lead the breach. Alpha 4 and Bravo 7 cover her 6. I'll take the rear and lay down suppressing fire." The acknowledgements came back crisp, each pilot confirming with a terse copy. Jax eased his throttle, feeling the faint tug of the asteroid's gravity as his fighter's nose dipped toward the craggy surface. The rock loomed larger, its ridges catching the distant starlight in sharp relief. He kept his eyes on the altimeter, counting down the meters as they fell. At 800 meters, the tug became unmistakable. His HUD flashed a warning, G-load rising to 2.3. He resisted the instinct to fight it, instead letting the asteroid's mass draw him in. The swarm's formation tightened ahead, their ships a wall of gleaming hulls. "Now," he barked. The squadron cut thrust, coasting silently as the asteroid's gravity accelerated them. The metal of his fighter sang against the hull, a low vibration that resonated through his boots. At periapsis, just 150 meters from the stone, Jack slammed the throttle forward. The engines roared, spitting out a plume of blue-white exhaust that kissed the rock's surface before being sucked away by the vacuum. Mara's fighter shot ahead, a dark spear aimed at the heart of the Kelari wall. She triggered her cannons, a concentrated barrage of pulsed lasers that carved a glowing seam through the nearest line of interceptors. Explosions bloomed, sending shards of alloy spinning outward. Alpha 4 and Bravo 7 flared their thrusters, laying down a curtain of suppressive fire that forced the Kelari to split their attention. Jax, bringing up the rear, unleashed a salvo of micro-missiles that arced over the asteroid's lip, raining down on the swarm's rear ranks. The alien ships scrambled, their formation disintegrating as pilots tried to avoid the sudden barrage. For a breathless stretch, the void was filled with the chaotic dance of metal and plasma, human fighters weaving through the alien wall, the asteroid a silent witness to the clash. The Kelari screams over the channel grew ragged, their disciplined clicks replaced by frantic bursts of static. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the assault stalled. The swarm, though bruised, began to reform, pulling back to regroup beyond the asteroid's shadow. Their numbers were still overwhelming, dozens of intact ships still loomed, their weapons charging. Jax's HUD flashed a new warning, a massive signature moving into the system at 0.3 C. The wrath of Calith had arrived early, its bulk blotting out a section of the starfield like a dark moon. "Wrath inbound, ETA 3 minutes, he said, voice low but edged with steel. "We've bought ourselves time, but not much. Prepare for a defensive perimeter. We'll use the asteroid as a shield, hold the line until the convoy can jump." Mara's breath was audible over the comm. "Copy, we'll make them pay for every meter." Jax glanced at the blinking icons of his remaining fighters, 3 still green, 1 flickering amber. The alien armada pressed forward, a tide of steel and hatred, but for now the humans held the razor's edge, their claws dug into the rock's cold surface, waiting for the inevitable storm. The Kelari vanguard broke cover 30 seconds later, 20 light interceptors spitting out of the Wrath's iron wake, no formation, just a scattered cloud of jagged gray hulls and charging plasma coils. Jax's HUD pinged red before his visual sensors locked on, the contacts resolving fast enough to make his throat tighten for half a second before he pushed the reaction down. "Contact 090, light loadout, no heavy ordnance," he said, voice flat, no trace of the adrenaline heating his veins. "Hold fire until they cross the mining turret firing line. Conserve munitions." The asteroid's leftover automated point defense batteries, left behind by the abandoned Helium-3 outpost the convoy had scavenged parts from 3 months prior, opened up first. 3 interceptors blew apart in silent plumes of superheated gas before the rest of the vanguard scattered, plasma bursts skittering off the asteroid's pitted nickel-iron surface, a few glancing off the human fighters' forward shields to send sparks showering across the cockpit glass. Mara's transmission came through as a sharp burst, cut short to slip past the Kalari's ongoing comms jam that had been spitting static across all frequencies since the first rail slug volley hit their rear guard. Shield at 62%, port aileron nicked. No cabin breach. 2 precise wing cannon bursts took out the 2 interceptors that had close to point-blank range on her position, their wreckage spinning into the asteroid's shadow. Tove, bogey at your 6, flanking the south ridge, Jax called, his eyes flicking between his target scope and the massive, rune-etched hull of the Wrath looming beyond the swarm. Break right, take the shot. On it. Tove's voice was calm, almost bored, the kind of tone a mechanic might use talking about a routine oil change. 1 rail slug later, the interceptor's engine core detonated, sending it spinning into the asteroid's surface to leave a smoldering crater the size of a ground car. The last of the Vanguard went down in flames, but the Wrath's forward battery was already spinning up. Jax's HUD screamed overload as the capital ship's signature spiked, the local sensor grid drowning out under the sheer mass of its power output. 6 plasma bolts, each the size of a human frigate, streaked from the Wrath's flank, moving fast enough to leave afterimages burned into Jax's retina. The mining turrets opened up, their fire useless against the capital-grade bolts. 3 slammed into the asteroid's far side, blowing out a chunk of rock the size of a city block, the shockwave sending a cloud of debris screaming out into the void. Jax's fighter shuddered so hard his headset slipped down his forehead, his HUD glitching for half a second before stabilizing. Rin, brake left, debris cloud inbound. Rin's fighter yanked hard to port, the edge of the debris cloud shearing off his starboard wing's leading edge. His HUD flashed red. Wing S breached, cabin pressure holding, I'm good. The comms crackled to life with Captain Hale's voice, tight but steady, the convoy's jump drive whine audible under his words. ASF flight, this is convoy laid. Jump drive is charged, ETA to ignition 90 seconds. We need you to hold the line for 90 more, that's all. Mara's response was instant, no hesitation. Copy that, convoy led. We've got you covered, 90 seconds is a walk in the park. Jax keyed his flight comm, his gaze fixed on the swarm beginning to surge forward again, this time the full weight of the surviving Kalari force, dozens of ships pushing out of the Wrath's shadow, their weapons cycling up for a full broadside. He racked the slide on his wing-mounted rail gun, checked his ammo count, 8 rounds left, enough to take out 8 interceptors if he didn't miss. The reactor hummed under his seat, the faint metallic tang of recycled air mixing with the sharp, acrid smell of burnt ozone from the earlier dogfight still clinging to the cockpit vents. The asteroid's cold seeped through the fighter's hull, pressing against his spine, but his hands were steady on the controls. Listen up, he said, voice low and sharp enough to cut through the comm static. They're throwing everything they have at us in the next 90 seconds. No retreat, no surrender. We hold the line or we don't go home. Am I clear? The 3 remaining pilots responded in unison, crisp, no trace of doubt, clear lead. The first of the swarm peeled around the asteroid's northern tip, plasma cannons charging, the Wrath's main cannon glowing bright enough to outshine the distant star behind it. Jax flipped his safety off, his finger hovering over the trigger. The Kalari swarm didn't waste time on taunts or posturing, not when they'd already written off the 4 remaining human stealth fighters as crippled debris after the last dogfight. Dozens of iridescent interceptors poured around the Wrath's flanks, plasma cannons spooling so bright they streaked the asteroid's pitted surface in neon blue. The capital ship's main cannon hummed loud enough to vibrate through Jax's cockpit hull, its violet charging coil aimed dead center at the asteroid's shadowed cleft where the convoy's jump drives were still cycling. No hail, no demand for surrender. The Kalari command had decided broadsides and interceptors were more than enough to finish the job before the human convoy could ignite. Jax's HUD flared red at the upper edge, timer counting down from 127. The recycled air in his cockpit was thin, the reactor's coolant system straining to keep up with the rail gun's charge cycle, the acrid tang of burnt ozone sharp enough to prickle his eyes. He didn't fumble for the climate controls. His left hand rested light on the throttle, right finger curled firm over the rail trigger, gaze locked on the lead interceptor cluster, peeling around the northern asteroid ridge. Kale, point defense, take the lead cluster, he said, voice flat over the comm, no wasted syllables. Rin, jam their targeting pings, keep them off our 6. Mara, cover my left flank, I'm pulling the heavy interceptors. Copy, lead. Kale's response was instant, his point defense lasers spitting green streaks before he finished speaking. The first 3 interceptors in the cluster exploded mid-charge, debris peppering the asteroid's surface below. 2 more slipped through, plasma bolts searing past Jax's starboard wing close enough to blister the matte black stealth coating. The timer ticked to 1:11. The Wrath's main cannon flared brighter, a new warning flashing across Jax's HUD. Main cannon charge complete in 42 seconds. Jump drive ignition in 87 seconds. Jax's jaw tightened. The Kilari weren't just throwing interceptors at them. A half-dozen heavy bombers had broken formation, diving low around the asteroid's southern face, their payload locks trained straight on the jump point cleft. One missile launched before the bombers could be targeted, streaking white-hot toward the convoy's hiding spot. "Mara, lead bomber, port side low," Jax ordered. Mara's fighter peeled off left, her rail gun spitting once. The first bomber's engine blew out in a burst of orange plasma, the craft spinning wild into the asteroid's surface. Kale laid down a wall of laser fire that took out the second bomber's missile bay before it could launch, but the third got a salvo off, 3 missiles arcing straight for the cleft. Jax yanked the stick hard right, flipping his fighter into an inverted dive, throttling up to max. The G-force pressed him into his seat, his rail gun spitting twice. The first round took out the bomber's port wing. The second caught the lead missile mid-flight, detonating it in a shower of sparks far short of the asteroid. The shockwave rattled his cockpit, the HUD flickering for half a second before stabilizing. The timer ticked to 0:58. The Kilari swarm surged now, hundreds of interceptors pouring around the Wrath, no more arrogance, no more holding back. Plasma bolts lit up the black space around them, searing past their cockpits, scoring craters into the asteroid below. The Wrath's main cannon flared again, charge complete in 32 seconds. "Rin, you see those flanking interceptors cutting around the southern ridge?" Jax asked, tone sharp. "Affirmative, 12 of them vectoring straight for the jump point," Rin replied, his comm crackling with static as he dumped every jamming pod he had left into their targeting frequencies. "Locks are wobbling, but they'll reacquire in 8 seconds max. Mara, take the lead 4. Kale, cover her 6. I'm handling the rest." Jax thumbed the afterburner, rocketing straight for the incoming interceptor cluster, rail gun spitting as he went. 3 interceptors exploded before they could get a missile off, the 4th slamming into his fighter's port wing, the stealth coating blistering, hull screaming under the impact. He corrected the dip finger flying over the controls, rail gun spitting again to take out the next interceptor in the cluster. Timer ticked to 0:22. The Wrath's cannon hummed so loud it drowned out the comm static, the charge complete in 12 seconds. The remaining interceptors were swarming now, plasma bolts pinging off his fighter's hull, a warning light flashing red in his peripheral vision, hull integrity at 62%. "Convoy lead, this is strike lead," Jax keyed the comm, voice steady despite the adrenaline burning in his veins. "Wrath main cannon charge in 12 seconds, interceptors still swarming your jump point. We need you to push ignition up 3 seconds, we can't hold the line past that." "Copy that, strike lead," convoy lead's voice came back, tight but unshaken. "Ignition adjusted to 78 seconds. All escort cruisers are routing point defense to your coordinates, covering fire incoming." Streaks of blue plasma from the convoy's escorts lit up the space between the fighters and the Wrath, taking out 5 interceptors, blowing another cluster to scrap. Jax racked his rail gun, checked his ammo count, 3 rounds left. 4 interceptors bearing down on his 6, the Wrath's cannon charging, 9 seconds left. He didn't hesitate. He flipped his fighter hard toward the Wrath, throttling up to max, rail gun spitting as he went. The first round caught the cannon's power coupling, sending a shower of sparks erupting from the capital ship's hull. The second blew the charging coil's regulator, the violet glow fizzling out to a dull, harmless hum. The third round took out the interceptor leading the charge on his 6, the craft exploding into a cloud of debris that pelted his fighter's nose. The timer ticked to 0:03. Chapter 8, Episode 12, ASF, Outnumbered human stealth fighters wage desperate dogfights against a swarming alien armada. The Wrath's cannon fizzled out, its lethal charge collapsing into nothing. Jax's HUD screamed warnings, but he ignored them. The alien capital ship loomed like a continent of steel, its hull bristling with interceptor bays vomiting fresh squadrons into the void. The convoy's ignition countdown ticked mercilessly in his ear. 0:02. "Strike lead, you bought us a window," convoy lead's voice cut through the static. "Ignition sequence locked, hold them off for 60 more seconds." 60 seconds, against a swarm that outnumbered them 20-1. Jax's jaw tightened. "Copy, strike wing, form on me. We're burning the last of our stealth reserves, no more hiding." 3 battered human fighters slid into formation, their hulls scarred, their rail guns nearly dry. The alien interceptors surged forward, arrogant in their numbers, their plasma fire stitching the void. Jax's squadron didn't flinch, they dove straight into the storm. The macro clash unfolded across kilometers of black space. Alien cruisers repositioned, their commanders certain the humans were cornered. The Wrath's escorts tightened their net, plasma batteries locking onto the convoy's ignition point, but the humans had learned to weaponize desperation. Every maneuver was calculated, every risk embraced. Strike 2, peel left, drag their targeting arrays, Jax ordered. His voice was calm, surgical. Strike 3, shadow me. We're cutting through their center. Roger, came the replies, clipped and professional. No bravado, no wasted words. Strike 2 flared her thrusters, diving into the alien formation. Plasma bolts chased her, forcing the interceptors to break their perfect swarm. Jax seized the gap. He throttled forward, railgun silent now, relying on the stealth fighter's agility. Strike 3 followed, weaving through the chaos. The aliens underestimated human unpredictability. Their doctrine was precision, overwhelming firepower, flawless formations. The humans fought like predators, erratic, terrifyingly calm, exploiting every crack in the enemy's arrogance. Jax's fighter skimmed the Wrath's hull, sensors screaming proximity alerts. He released a burst of decoys not to evade but to confuse. Alien targeting systems locked onto the false signatures, opening a corridor for Strike 3. Together they punched through, slicing into the swarm's heart. Convoy lead, you're clear for ignition, Jax transmitted. We've disrupted their lock, confirmed, 40 seconds to jump. The aliens reacted with fury. The Wrath's secondary batteries lit up, hurling plasma storms that turned space into a furnace. Jax's canopy glowed white, his shields collapsing to 18%. He felt the fighter shudder, metal groaning under the assault. Still, he pressed on. Strike wing status, he demanded. Two's gone, came the reply from Strike 3, voice flat. She took a direct hit, no shoot. Jax swallowed hard, no time for grief. Maintain formation, we finished this. The swarm regrouped, hundreds of interceptors converging. Jax's HUD painted a nightmare, vectors closing from every angle. He knew the math, no human pilot should survive this, but survival wasn't the mission, buying time was. Convoy lead, 30 seconds, Jax said. His tone was steady, almost cold. We'll hold. He cut power to his main thrusters, flipping the fighter into a reverse drift. The interceptors overshot, their plasma fire streaking past. Jax reignited engines, slashing through their flank. Strike 3 mirrored the maneuver, shredding 2 interceptors with her last rail rounds. The swarm faltered. Alien commanders barked orders, but their formations were unraveling. The humans had turned chaos into a weapon. 20 seconds, the Wrath's hull glowed as it tried to recharge its main cannon. Jax knew if it fired before the convoy jumped, everything was lost. Strike 3, target their coupling again, he ordered. We can't let that cannon light. Copy, 1 shot left. She dove, rail gun roaring. The round slammed into the Wrath's coupling, sparks erupting. The cannon's glow sputtered, then died. The alien flagship reeled, its arrogance punctured. 10 seconds, Jax's fighter was bleeding systems, hull integrity at 41%. Interceptors swarmed, plasma bolts carving chunks from his wings. He fought on, every maneuver precise, every second earned. Convoy lead status, he demanded. Jump drive charged, 5 seconds. Jax exhaled. Strike wing last push, keep them off the convoy. He throttled into the swarm, shields collapsing, alarms shrieking. Plasma fire tore through his fuselage, but he didn't break. Strike 3 followed, her fighter blazing like a comet. Together they carved a path of defiance through the alien tide. The convoy's ignition flared, a blinding burst of light. Human ships vanished into the jump corridor, escaping annihilation. Jax's HUD confirmed, convoy clear. Relief surged, but only for a heartbeat. The Wrath's batteries locked onto him, plasma storms converging. His fighter screamed under the impact, hull integrity plummeting to 12%. He knew he wouldn't make it out. Strike lead, convoy is safe. Convoy lead's voice came, heavy with respect. You did it. Jax smiled grimly. Mission accomplished. Tell them we weren't afraid. The Wrath's plasma barrage engulfed his fighter. The cockpit went white, systems died, silence. Strike 3's voice crackled faintly in the void. Strike lead is down, but the convoy lives. Humanity lives, the swarm regrouped, but their prey was gone. The humans had escaped, leaving behind wreckage and defiance. The alien empire had won the battle, but the war had shifted. For the first time, they had been denied absolute victory, and somewhere in the dark, the legend of Jax began to grow. Chapter 9, Episode 12, ASF, outnumbered human stealth fighters waged desperate dogfights against a swarming alien armada. The alien fleet hung in the void like a wall of fire, their formations precise, arrogant, unyielding. Thousands of glimmering hulls reflected the dying light of nearby stars, each vessel bristling with plasma batteries and drone swarms. The Empire had come to finish what Jax had delayed. Humanity's convoy had escaped, but the aliens were not retreating. They wanted blood, they wanted proof that resistance was futile. Strike 3's fighter drifted among wreckage, her systems barely holding. She steadied her breathing, eyes locked on the tactical overlay. The swarm was regrouping, tightening its net. She knew the Empire's doctrine, crush survivors, erase legends before they spread, but she also knew humans didn't break, not now. Not after Jax. Strike Wing, regroup on me, she ordered, voice clipped steady. 3 fighters answered, scarred, limping, but alive. Their stealth systems flickered, barely masking their signatures. Against the Empire's sensors, they were shadows, fragile shadows. The alien command ship Wrath pulsed with energy, its batteries recharged, preparing another storm. Strike 3 studied its vector. The convoy was gone, but the Wrath was still hunting. If it tracked the jump corridor, reinforcements could follow. That corridor had to be sealed. She clenched her jaw. Jax had bought them time, now she had to buy survival. Strike Wing, listen up, she said. We're not running, we cut the Wrath's eyes. We blind them or humanity's escape means nothing. No hesitation came back, just acknowledgments, short, military, absolute. They knew the odds, 4 fighters against an Empire's flagship. But humans had learned to fight in the margins, to weaponize desperation. Their stealth frames weren't built for brute force, they were built for surgical chaos. Strike Two's voice broke through, targeting their sensor lattice. If we overload it, they'll lose the corridor trace. Copy, Strike 3 replied. We go in staggered, no heroics, precision only. The swarm moved first. Alien drones surged, a tide of metallic predators. Their formation was flawless, arcs of plasma weaving into a net. Strike Wing Dove, engines screaming, cutting through vectors at impossible angles. Human pilots didn't fight like machines, they fought like predators, unpredictable, terrifyingly calm. Bandits on my 6, Strike 4 reported. His fighter spun, releasing a burst of decoys. Plasma fire tore past, grazing his wing. He didn't flinch, still in play. Strike 3's HUD lit red. The Wrath's batteries were locking again. She throttled hard, pulling her fighter into the swarm's blind spot. Her cannons spat tungsten slugs, ripping through drone armor. 1, 2, 3 kills, not enough, never enough, but every second mattered. The Wrath's sensor lattice glowed, a web of crystalline nodes across its hull. Strike 2 lined up, his fighter trembling under enemy fire. I've got the lattice, firing. His railgun cracked, a streak of kinetic fury. The shot slammed into the lattice, shattering one node. The Wrath systems flickered. Alien formations stuttered, momentarily blind. The Empire's arrogance faltered. Good hit, Strike 3 barked. Press the gap. Strike Wing surged forward, weaving through chaos. Their stealth fields flared, masking signatures just long enough to slip past drones. Strike 4 unleashed a missile spread, detonating across the Wrath's flank. More nodes shattered. The lattice dimmed. The corridor trace began to collapse. Alien command channels erupted, harsh, guttural tones, orders laced with fury. The Empire wasn't used to losing control. Their drones swarmed tighter, reckless now, desperate to shield the Wrath. Plasma storms filled the void, blinding sensors, frying circuits. Strike Wing's fighters shook under the assault, hulls cracking, shields gone. Strike 4 status, Strike 3 demanded, silence, then static. His fighter was gone, consumed by plasma fire. Strike 3 didn't pause, she couldn't. Strike Wing, keep pressure, no retreat. The Wrath's batteries unleashed again, a storm of plasma arcs converging. Strike 2's fighter caught the edge, hull integrity collapsing. He gritted his teeth, voice steady. I've got 1 shot left, lining up. Make it count, Strike 3 said. His railgun fired. The slug tore through the Wrath's core lattice, detonating in a burst of fractured light. The sensor web collapsed entirely. The corridor trace vanished. Humanity's escape was sealed. Strike 2's fighter disintegrated a heartbeat later, swallowed by plasma storms. Only 2 remained, Strike 3 and Strike 5. The Wrath loomed, wounded but alive, its arrogance bleeding into rage. Alien drones swarmed tighter, hunting the last humans. Strike 3's hands were steady on the controls. She knew the mission was complete, the convoy was safe, but survival was still a fight worth taking. Strike 5 were ghosts now, she said. No more objectives. Just defiance, copy, he replied, voice calm. Let's make them remember. They dove together, weaving through plasma storms, carving impossible paths through the swarm. Every maneuver was a statement, humans don't yield. Strike 3's cannons spat fire, shredding drones. Strike 5's missiles detonated across alien hulls, leaving scars on the Wrath itself. The Empire had won the numbers, but the humans owned the chaos. The Wrath's command channels screamed, furious, unsettled. For the first time, the Empire's perfection cracked. Their prey had escaped. Their sensors were blind, their drones were bleeding, and 2 human fighters still danced in the void, refusing annihilation. Strike 3 systems were failing, hull integrity at 9%, engines sputtering. She exhaled, calm, resolute. Strike Wing, humanity lives, that's all that matters. Her fighter spun into the swarm, guns blazing until circuits died. The cockpit went dark, silence. Strike 5's voice carried into the void. Strike 3 is down, but the Wrath bleeds, humanity bleeds less. The swarm regrouped, but their prey was gone. The humans had denied them again. The Empire had won another battle, but the war had shifted further. Legends were multiplying. Jax was not alone anymore. Strike 3's defiance joined him in the dark, and somewhere across the stars, humanity's enemies began to fear shadows. The static in Strike 5's comms cut out 12 seconds after Strike 3's cockpit went dark. leaving only the low thrum of Jax's failing port engine and the sharp, tinny whine of proximity alerts. His HUD flickered red warning icons stacking over the fading thermal bloom where his wingman's fighter had torn through the drone vanguard. Hull integrity 72%. Ammo reserves 14 rounds 20. Missile bay empty. Life support scrubbing code 2 at 40% efficiency. "Copy that command," he said, keying the open channel he'd kept live the entire run, voice level enough to cut through the Wrath's jamming burst that had just washed over his sector. "Strike 3 is KIA. Wrath's primary sensor array is still offline per her last targeting pass. Swarm is reorienting to my position. Estimate 120 hostiles inbound, 90-second ETA to weapons range." He didn't wait for the faint, staticky acknowledgement from the hidden human carrier tucked in the system's outer debris field. The swarm's lead drones were already piercing the plasma haze the Wrath had belched out to cover their retreat, their green targeting lasers skittering across his fighter's reinforced titanium hull. He yanked the stick hard left, thrusters flaring as he dove into the upper atmosphere of the dead moon the Wrath had been using as a forward drone staging ground. The Wrath's hull still bore the 4 deep, glowing scars his opening missile salvo had torn through its outer armor 3 minutes prior, each crack venting superheated plasma into the void. The drone launch bays adjacent to the largest scar were swarming with activity, more hunter-killer drones being loaded to replace the 70% of the swarm his wing had shredded. He adjusted his trajectory, skimming 200 meters above the moon's cratered surface, the swarm's drones screaming past overhead, their sensors locked on the fading heat signature of Strike 3's wreckage. "Jax, this is command," the carrier's tactical officer's voice came through, sharp and urgent, as his HUD pinged the single remaining ULF anti-ship torpedo slotted in his internal bay, the experimental payload he'd refused to fire on the drone swarm earlier, banking on getting a clear shot at the Wrath's weak point. "We're reading 3 more Wrath-class destroyers dropping out of warp at your 7 o'clock, 2 light minutes out. You don't have the ordnance to take the Wrath down, abort. We'll pull you out with the emergency evac pods." "Negative," Jax cut in, flipping his fighter's ECM pod to full power, the burst frying the targeting sensors of the 2 lead drones that had peeled off to chase him. "Strike 3 bought me a clear path, I'm not wasting it." The lead drone in the pack chasing him swerved, its plasma cannon charging blue light building at the weapon's muzzle. Jax didn't flinch. He cut his engines completely, drifting into the shadow of a 10-kilometer crater wall, the drone screaming past 50 meters above his cockpit, its sensors blinded by the moon's mineral-rich dust cloud. He waited 3 seconds, then fired his remaining decoy flares, the burning magnesium pods shooting off in the opposite direction, drawing half the swarm with them. The remaining drones recalibrated, their thrusters flaring as they turned back toward his position. Jax hit his afterburners, rocketing straight up out of the moon's atmosphere, his fighter's hull glowing red from re-entry friction as he closed the distance to the Wrath. The alien capital ship's point defense turrets swiveled toward him, but the damage his earlier missile salvo had done to the ship's command deck meant the targeting systems were lagging 1.2 seconds behind his movement, bolts of plasma searing the space where he'd been 2 seconds earlier. He lined up the crack in the Wrath's hull, the ULF torpedo's targeting lock screaming in his ear. The first of the pursuing drones crested the moon's atmosphere behind him, its cannon charging to full. He didn't hesitate, he fired. The torpedo shot out of his bay, streaking straight for the exposed power coupling feeding the Wrath's drone launch bays. The drone behind him fired, a plasma bolt slamming into Strike 5's starboard wing, sending sparks cascading across his HUD. His wing's hydraulics failed, the fighter spinning 15 degrees off course, but he kept his eyes locked on the torpedo's trajectory. It slammed into the Wrath's power coupling, the 50-kiloton warhead detonating with a blinding white flash that lit up the entire moon's night side. The alien capital ship's hull split open, the drone launch bays erupting in a chain of secondary explosions that sent thousands of half-built drones spinning out into the void, their thrusters sparking uselessly. The Wrath's engines died, the 2-kilometer-long ship drifting slowly, nose first, toward the moon's surface. Jax's comms crackled to life, the carrier's tactical officer's voice tight with disbelief. "Strike 5, you just took down a Wrath-class capital ship with 1 torpedo. The remaining swarm is scattering, the incoming destroyers are breaking off their approach. You're clear to RTB, emergency evac pods are launching now." Jax stared at the burning wreck of the Wrath, at the fading thermal bloom where Strike 3's fighter had gone down, at the scattered drones spinning lifelessly through the void. His HUD flashed a final, unignorable warning. Oxygen levels at 12%, hull integrity 41%, engine core critical 90 seconds to total failure. He didn't care. Copy command, he said, voice steady, killing his afterburners to conserve power as he turned his crippled fighter back toward the carrier's position, the tiny glint of the evac pod's thrusters visible on the edge of his HUD. Log a notation for Strike 3's next of kin. She went down swinging. And tell the brass the wrath bleeds. Tell them humanity doesn't quit. The swarm's remaining drones scattered, their command structure shattered with the wrath's destruction. For the first time in the 3-month war, the humans had held the line without losing a single carrier. Jax didn't smile. He just flew, the silence in his comms heavier than any battle chatter, the memory of his wingman's last words burning brighter than any plasma blast. The 90-second critical failure countdown blares in Jax's earpiece, synced to the strobing red pulse of his HUD. Oxygen saturation drops to 11% before he can blink, the recycled air tasting like copper and burnt wiring. His left flight glove is shredded, a shallow gash across his knuckles oozing blood that smears against the stick's worn grip. He doesn't wipe it off. The evac pods are 12 clicks out, their tiny thruster glints steady against the void, but his fighter's port engine throws sparks that streak past the canopy like dying stars. Hull integrity ticks down to 39% when his comms crackle, the voice on the other end not tactical but strike lead tight, stripped of the usual dry edge. Strike 5, hold position. 3 Wrath escort corvettes dropped out of FTL 20 clicks off your bow. They're not scattering. Jax's jaw tightens. Battle intel had flagged Wrath escorts destroyed an hour prior, but the alien command structure had hidden them in the moon's shadow, waiting for the capital ship to draw fire before moving. Macro first, the corvettes are already charging forward, plasma batteries glowing bright blue on their bows, streaks of ionized fire already arcing toward the carrier's point defense grid. The carrier's PDCs light up in response, tracers stitching across the black, but 2 of the corvette's first shots punch through the outer hull, blowing a 20-meter gash in the flight deck. Wounded cry over the casualty net, sharp and panicked, before comms cut to static to preserve bandwidth. Copy lead, Jax says, voice steady even as his vision swims from low oxygen. I'm at 40% hull, engine core 90 seconds from popping, oxygen's tanking. I can't make the pods if those corvettes light up the approach lane. What's our bird count? 2 left, pinned by drone debris field off your port side. We can't break through to take out their command corvette before they fire another salvo. You're the only one with a clear shot. 1 torpedo left, right. Affirmative. Jax's fingers flex around the stick. His targeting systems are fried, the autolock reticle jumping wild across his HUD. The command corvette's command module is shielded. Standard human ordnance won't pierce it unless he guides the torpedo manually, adjusting for the corvette's lateral thrust and interference from the carrier's PDC fire. The countdown ticks to 75 seconds. The corvettes are 15 clicks out now, their plasma batteries glowing brighter. Strike 5, you're clear to fire when ready. We'll cover your RTB after the corvettes scatter. Lead's voice cuts out as his fighter takes a glancing plasma hit, static fizzing over the line. Jax lines up the shot, his breath coming short, the lack of oxygen making his fingers tingle. He pulls the trigger, the torpedo blasting free, but the recoil jolts the crippled fighter hard. Hull integrity drops to 32%. The countdown to engine failure plummets to 42 seconds. The torpedo streaks toward the corvette, but the corvette's point defenses swivel green laser bolts pinging off the warhead's casing, knocking it off course. It's going to miss by 50 meters, slam into the corvette's unshielded aft, do minimal damage. He's got 10 seconds before the torpedo runs out of fuel. Jax curses, yanking the power lever full forward, diverting every joule of remaining power from life support to the torpedo's guidance system. His HUD flashes a single, unignorable warning, life support offline. Oxygen depleted in 12 seconds. The reticle locks hard onto the corvette's command module. The torpedo slams home, a bright orange bloom that tears the corvette in half, debris spinning out in all directions. The remaining 2 corvettes cut their engines immediately, FTL drives flaring as they jump out of system before the carrier's PDCs can get a lock. Tactical's voice comes over the net, sharp with disbelief. Strike 5, corvettes are bugging out, you're clear to RTB. Rescue tug is launching now, ETA 2 minutes. Jax cuts him off. His engine core whines, a high, rising shriek that drowns out the comms. The countdown hits 3 seconds. If the core detonates now, the shockwave will catch the evac pods, the rescue tug, punch straight through the carrier's already damaged flight deck. He yanks the stick hard to starboard, pointing the crippled fighter away from the evacuation lane, toward the empty, unlit edge of the moon's orbit. The engine core blows, a silent flash of white heat that fades before anyone on the carrier's bridge can blink. The tactical officer stares at his sensor screen, the blip that was Strike 5's fighter gone. The carrier's captain stands silent for a long minute, his jaw tight before he speaks, voice low, no trace of the usual bark. Log the citation. Jax Voss, Strike 5. Took down a Wrath capital ship, 3 escort corvettes, saved 2,400 personnel. He didn't quit, the tactical officer nods, tapping his console before he pauses, frowning at a tiny, almost unnoticeable blip 200 clicks out, drifting slow life support systems spooling back to life. An ejection seat. He taps the screen, zooming in on the reading, and his blood runs cold. The biometric signature matches Jack's Voss. But the ejection seat's transponder is broadcasting a signal, not a human distress call, an alien homing beacon, the same frequency the swarm used to coordinate their attacks. Chapter 12, Signal in the Void. The carrier's CIC was silent except for the hum of cooling fans and the faint crackle of comms traffic. Every officer's eyes locked on the drifting ejection seat, its beacon pulsing in a rhythm that matched the swarm's coordination signals. Confirm again, the captain ordered, voice clipped. The tactical officer swallowed. Biometric lock is solid, it's Voss, but the beacon isn't ours, it's Wrath frequency. The captain's jaw tightened. They tagged him, or worse, they're using him. Across the battle space, the swarm regrouped. Thousands of alien interceptors formed a lattice around their capital ships, their movements unnervingly precise. Human stealth fighters, reduced to half strength, clung to the shadows of the moon's fractured orbit. Every pilot knew the math, they were outnumbered 20-1. Strike command, this is Ghost Flight, came a calm voice over comms. Major Ren Hale, the squadron leader, spoke as if reading a weather report. We've got a problem. Voss's seat is broadcasting swarm control signals. Recommend immediate isolation. The carrier's comms officer cut in. Isolation how? If we jam it, we risk losing his life support telemetry. If we don't, the swarm has a homing beacon inside our perimeter. Ren's reply was flat. Then we cut the beacon out of the equation, permanently. Silence. No one wanted to say it, but every officer understood. Destroy the seat, destroy Voss. The captain exhaled slowly. Negative, he's earned better than that. We recover him, but we do it without letting the swarm trace us back. The swarm moved first. A wedge of alien interceptors broke formation, accelerating toward the beacon. Their vector was clean, surgical. They weren't hunting, they were retrieving. Ren's voice sharpened. They're coming for him. If they get him, they'll dissect his biometrics, crack our comms encryption, maybe worse. We intercept. Ghost Flight, you're cleared hot, the captain said. The human fighters ignited, stealth fields collapsing into visible contrails as they pushed engines to maximum burn. The interceptors reacted instantly, splitting into two prongs, one to secure the beacon, the other to counter the humans. Dogfights erupted in the black. Fox 3, Ren's wingman launched a missile, its seeker head locking onto the alien wedge. One interceptor vaporized, but the rest scattered, weaving through debris fields with inhuman precision. Ren's fighter rolled inverted, cutting across the swarm's flank. They're flying like they already know our playbook. Voss's beacon isn't just a locator, it's feeding them our tactics. On the carrier, the tactical officer's hands flew across his console. Confirmed, their maneuvering patterns match our last 3 sorties. They're predicting us, the captain's voice dropped to a growl. Then we changed the book. Ghost Flight improvised, no formations, no doctrine, fight like pirates. Ren grinned inside his helmet. Copy, chaos it is. The human fighters broke into erratic vectors, wild spirals, sudden stalls, thrust reversals. Maneuvers no sane pilot would attempt in a training sim. The swarm faltered, their predictive algorithms failing against the unpredictability of human desperation. One by one, interceptors fell, but the beacon pulsed louder, its signal amplifying. The swarm's capital ships adjusted course, entire fleets bending toward the drifting seat. Ren cursed. They're treating him like a command node. If they integrate his biometrics, they'll rewrite their entire coordination matrix. He'll be the key to their swarm intelligence. The captain's decision was immediate. Ghost Flight, secure Voss, tug is inbound. You have 90 seconds before the swarm locks this sector. Ren Dove, engine screaming, closing on the beacon. The ejection seat tumbled slowly, its occupant barely conscious, visor cracked, oxygen feed sputtering. Jack's Voss's eyes flickered open as Ren's fighter stabilized alongside. Strike 5, this is Ghost Leader, you're not done yet. Jax's voice was a rasp. Beacon, it's inside the seat, integrated. Take me, they'll own your war. Ren hesitated. We'll cut it out. Jax shook his head weakly. No time, you know what you have to do. The tug's transponder pinged 2 clicks out. The swarm's interceptors surged, a tidal wave of hostile signatures. Ren's hand hovered over the trigger. Destroy the seat and the beacon, sacrifice Voss, or gamble everything on recovery. The captain's voice cut through, steady, unyielding. Ren, listen carefully. Humanity survives because we refuse inevitability. You bring him back, that's an order. Ren's jaw clenched. Copy. He extended a grappling tether, magnetic clamps locking onto the seat. The beacon's pulse spiked, broadcasting their position to every alien ship in range. The swarm descended. Carrier, this is Ghost Leader. We've got Voss, but we're lit up like a flare. Recommend immediate jump prep. The captain didn't hesitate. All ships initiate emergency FTL sequence. Ghost Flight, hold the line until the drive spools. Ren's squadron formed a shield around the tug, throwing themselves into the swarm's teeth. Missiles streaked, cannons roared, hulls shattered. Every second bot was another fraction of the FTL drive charging. Jax's voice whispered over comms, barely audible. "Don't let them take me." Ren's reply was steel. "They won't." The carrier's drive core flared, space bending, stars warping. The tug locked into the jump corridor, dragging Jax's seat with it. The swarm lunged, interceptors clawing at the edges of the corridor. Half of Ghost Flight vanished in fire, but the tug broke through, swallowed by the distortion. Then silence. The carrier and its escorts were gone, leaving only wreckage and alien fury in orbit. On the other side of the jump, battered ships emerged into cold, empty space. The tug docked, medics swarming the ejection seat. Jax Voss was alive, but the beacon still pulsed faintly, embedded deep in the seat systems. The captain stared at the signal readout, expression grim. "We saved him, but the war just changed. They've touched our DNA now, and they won't stop until they own it." Ren removed his helmet, sweat streaking his face. "Then we fight harder, no doctrine, no predictability, just chaos. That's how humans win." The captain nodded slowly. "Chaos it is." Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endless and indifferent. The swarm was coming. Humanity had bought time, but at a cost they didn't yet understand. And Jax Voss, unconscious in the medbay, carried inside him the signal that could either doom humanity or become its most dangerous weapon.